partner for being here, proud of this guy. Thank you to the judge for recording and judging us, and thanks to the peanut gallery. Okay, just gonna follow the flow of the debate, gonna address their refutations to my contentions, and then go off case to talk about the counterpoint. Okay, first off, they came up here like and said to my status quo. The only thing is, it is bad sometimes. All right, so so what the opposition here is saying is like, we're not gonna give them this option of like civil disobedience. We're only gonna allow them what the laws are letting us to do. Obviously, this is bad because if you suppress these people, you'll cause even bigger revolt, and by suppressing it, you're going to make your matters worse. Again, we're going to touch back into France. Within the Second Revolution, the Congressional Assembly of France was like, we don't want these people rising up, so we're just going to put all these laws out there to suppress them. What happened? They revolted anyway, because inevitably, change, like I said, change is good, and the status quo, no matter what, human nature will always want this change for the betterment of themselves. There's no real argument made with it. I just brought it back up. I'm amazed. Anyway, moving on to my second contention of Rizzo's social contract. They link this to communism. All right. So what they think of communism is like they're thinking of like Soviet Union, China, Cuba. Those aren't like the ideal communistic states, right? They're just taking the bad things, but like good communism, like let's see, I believe it was in Britain in like 17th century. They had like the closest thing they had to communism. They had their empire everywhere, and then they had these rules stated in that would like weaken other nations and like better themselves. So actually, the ideal communism is good, but like this convoluted idea of communism, that they're breaking up. But I'm stating up the idea that Rizzo's like philosophy that we want the best for the people, and the only way of doing that is finding some way of organization where we make the voices heard, but in a cohesive manner, hence like a democratic republic like we have now. And that only came up because these people wanted this change. They didn't want an absolute government. They didn't want total anarchy. They wanted a mix. And this is where it kind of comes in. Moving on to my third contention of John Locke's like social philosophy. They came up here and said, the idea of impeachment. We're granted this right by the First Amendment. In my opening speech, I did say this, that impeachment was allowed. And yes.
Actually, that was not what we said. We said that part of the First Amendment that people have the right to petition the government basically for grievances, not impeach.
That's impeachment, my friend. You have grievances against this political figure. That's an impeachment. You have an issue with them, and you're giving them this right to vote against, right? Anyway, moving on to my fourth contention, change is good. And they just got up and said, what change is really good? So this is kind of like tying into like all the other three contentions. Like if we stay exactly this way we are, there won't be any evolution. There won't be innovations to get better. For example, China did not change for like several decades, and they didn't get into the field of like technological advancements until late in the field, and they were shut off. So for that time that they were shut off, they were very weak technologically, socially, and economically. No one really could manage or talk to China or trade, and they fell out of sync, and then it wasn't good. So obviously, and then like somebody came up with this idea of we should like stop, we should open up, and we should like change, and we should like the people should go up and say, hey, we're tired of this shut-in life. We want to go out and talk to people. And that's what they did. And now look at China. They're like they're a mega power. They're contesting with America. Okay, moving off case to their counter-contention. Like Cuba, some guerrilla warfare guy who rose up, like caused the deaths of millions. I'm not going to say that dying is good, but everything comes at a cost. You're hungry. You require money. Are you going to like let your family starve, or are you willing to go out and get that money? Yeah. Like everything comes at a cost. Like I'm not saying what this guy did was the best idea, But he had the right idea. He had what he wanted. He wanted like best thing that could happen. In that case, it happened to be a few lines, but still. Moving on to the second counter contention on like Berkeley, how like people opposed the Vietnam War and like required police and ended in death. But like again, this like brings up this actually ended in good. In Vietnam, the draft was still instituted, but thanks to these like protests, it was taken out. Now people aren't required to join the military; it is an option. So, and like that's good. We want people to have choices. We want them to have this option of like, I want to stay at home. I want to better my nation and not serve it. I will find alternative ways. So, their Berkeley contention falls. And then third counter contention of India, like how the subsidies there was like revolts against the subsidies on oil, and like people were happy with that. But again, this is good that they voiced their opinion. We didn't want them to like sink into the hole because they didn't have any money. The government needed to understand that they needed this, and then it's a good thing. Then moving on to like the pop culture idea of how like teen angst is like the worst thing possible. But if you're touching on pop culture, you should look to the more broader scale. For instance, look at Star Wars. The rebellion against the Empire. The Empire was blowing up worlds. Do we want the Empire blowing up our world because we don't want this civil disobedience? No, we want their TIE fighters going in and blowing up that Death Star. For all these wonderful reasons, we should vote for the government.